Raonaid Murray was born on the 6th of January 1982 to parents Jim and Deirdre Murray. Jim worked as a head teacher at a local boys' school. Raonaid was the youngest of 3 children. She had an older brother, Daniel, and an older sister, Sarah, and the Murray family lived in Glenageary, South Dublin, Ireland. Raonaid, or Rainey, as she was more commonly known amongst her friends, attended the St Joseph of Cluny Secondary School in Killiney, where she was a high achiever, scoring well in both her junior certificate and leaving certificate exams. After finishing school, Raonaid secured a job in a fashion boutique, Sally West, in a shopping centre in Dunleary, working part-time. She very much enjoyed the job, but she wanted to resit her leaving certificate at the Institute of Education in Leeson Street, in the hopes that she could attend the arts faculty in University College Dublin upon completion, having achieved the grades she needed to pursue her chosen career. Raonaid liked reading and poetry and hoped to one day become a professional writer. Rainey was known for dressing in bright colours and would often wear a blue stud in her nose. She had a very active social life and tended to meet up with friends very often, going to pubs and clubs most nights. The 3rd of September 1999 seemed like any other normal night out for 17-year-old Raonaid. She finished her shift at Sally West's at around 9 p.m. Alongside a friend, Raonaid went to Scott's pub on George's Street in Dunleary, a place she knew very well, and made plans to go to a nightclub later that evening. At approximately 11:20 p.m, Rainey left Scott's pub to take the 15-minute walk home to change before heading out to the nightclub. Around 25 or so minutes after leaving the pub, it is believed that Raonaid argued with a man in his mid-20s in the laneway between Silchester Road and the Murray home in Silchester Park. Witnesses claimed to have heard a female voice expressing a cry of, quote, "Leave me alone, go away," or something of a similar nature. Witnesses also heard a clear "fuck off," which was then followed by a scream. Raonaid had been stabbed 4 times in the side, chest and shoulder with a 1.5-inch sharp knife, believed to be a kitchen knife. The murderer fled the scene as Raonaid staggered 200 feet before collapsing and succumbing to her injuries. The body of Raonaid Murray was discovered by her sister Sarah at 12:33 a.m. on the morning of Saturday the 4th of September 1999, a mere 50 yards from the family home. It should be noted that Raonaid was not sexually assaulted and none of her possessions had been stolen, which ruled out a sexually motivated crime and robbery. An investigation was immediately launched. However, the killer, the murder weapon, nor a motive has ever been established. One of the biggest mysteries is whether Raonaid knew her killer or not, but without further investigations, it would be impossible to know the answer. At the peak of the case, over 100 Gardaí Síochána were involved, and by 2008 more than 8,000 people had been interviewed and over 3,000 statements had been taken. Overall, there were 12 arrests in the case, but unfortunately all led to dead ends. Every year, the Murray family issue an appeal for more information, offering a reward of €190,000. However, in recent years, the case has somewhat gone cold. A forensic profile of the killer was released by the Irish police and suggested that the murderer was a young man in his mid to late 20s, single, living either alone or with his mother. He would have been a loner, possibly with a drug problem, and may have been in psychiatric care at some point, or perhaps suffered an unknown mental health issue at the time. It was also suggested that the killer could also have had a history of antisocial behaviour and would be unlikely to have had any intimate relationships at the time. The forensic profile chillingly indicated a likelihood that this man would kill again. Suspects came and went in the case, the earliest suspect being a man in his mid-20s, 5'10" in height, with sandy-coloured hair, who was wearing light-coloured combat trousers and a beige top, seen arguing with Raonaid less than an hour before she was killed. A taxi driver reported picking up a young man with blood on his trousers in the early hours of that same morning and taking him to Granville Road at the top of Newtown Park Avenue, Blackrock. He dropped the man off at a house there and felt he did not see him go inside. House-to-house inquiries carried out at the time did not find anyone fitting the description living on that road. Later in the investigation, a suspect was found to have been living at the time on the other side of Newtown Park Avenue. He was arrested and questioned, but there was no evidence that he was involved in Raonaid's demise. A cook was also arrested and questioned but later released without charge, as was a young man seen dancing with Raonaid at a nightclub and then, quote, hassling her in a fast food restaurant on the 29th of July that same year. Farah Swali Noor, a Kenyan immigrant who was killed and dismembered in March of 2005 by sisters Linda and Charlotte Mulhall from Dublin, was also a suspect in Raonaid's murder. He allegedly threatened Linda and Charlotte's mother, Kathleen, by saying, quote, I'm going to fucking kill you, just like I did with Raonaid Murray, although he was allegedly drunk at the time. Noor, who was questioned during the initial investigation, has since been ruled out, however. The Gardaí Serious Crime Review Team began a review of the case in July of 2008 and identified a number of mistakes and oversights in the original investigation. It recommended new searches be carried out for the murder weapon and also found areas of failings within the case itself. Some potential witnesses who came forward with information at the time were followed up on incorrectly, including an irregularity in one witness statement which included an allegation of forgery. There was also tension between Gardaí units during the initial investigation, which meant that communication was not as effective as it could have been. Theories suggested by the review team were as follows. Raonaid knew her killer, as there was no record of a similar attack happening before or after this particular crime anywhere in the Dublin region. The nature of the attack would suggest that whoever killed the victim held some sort of personal grudge. The team also believed that Raonaid was possibly killed by a female. The woman may have been known to Raonaid, and she was killed after a personal disagreement, having cut contact with her. They identified a woman in her 30s who had a reputation for violence against other women. However, she left the country a year after the murder and still lives abroad. It's unclear whether she was questioned in regards to the case. Whilst on the subject of mistakes and oversights in this particular case, one of Raonaid's friends is quoted as saying, "When the murder happened, we just went into complete shock, but our anguish at losing her was deepened because of the way the guards behaved towards us. They seemed to dismiss things we said and appeared at times not to be pursuing avenues you would think might be explored." Some have suggested a police cover-up of some description. However, this is just speculation. We may never know who killed Raonaid or why such a bright teenager was brutally killed for no apparent reason. The Murray family continue to look for answers, and we can only hope that someday they find out the truth about what happened to their beloved daughter and why on that fateful September night in 1999.